You know that feeling, right? When a really good idea just pops into your head, seemingly out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Like when you're in the shower or something.
Exactly. And bam, there it is.
Right.
It makes you wonder sometimes, like, am I actually imaginative? Do I have a good imagination?
That's a common question, yeah.
Well, that question is exactly where we're sifting this deep dive. It's inspired by a book called Lugin and Luahus, which translates to Logical Creativity, a user guide for imagination. The author is Mika Kuzma.
And the core idea we're digging into is pretty fascinating. This notion that maybe we all have roughly the same capacity for imagination.
Which is kind of a radical thought for some people.
It is. And what's really interesting is the author's background. He's this mix, part artist, music, graphics, and part, well, nerd, as he puts it, programming background.
So logic and art combined?
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And it was observing these recurring patterns, like in nature, that led him to develop this whole method he calls logical creativity.
So it's less about waiting for inspiration to strike.
Yet much less about that. It's more about understanding how imagination actually functions, sort of the mechanics of it.
Right. So that's our mission today. Unpack these principles of logical creativity. We want to explore how understanding them might help you, listening right now, generate new ideas, see things differently.
Even when you're feeling totally stuck or not creative at all.
Exactly, because the book argues it's not about having some special talent, it's a skill. It's about consciously using the imagination you've already got.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, first off, tackling that common idea,
Yeah.
creativity, as this rare, almost magical gift.
Right. The book really challenges that right away.
How so?
It suggests that creativity really, it just boils down to using your imagination.
Okay.
And the key thing is, imagination isn't elusive.
Mm.
He argues it's actually completely natural, effortless even.
Effortless.
Like breathing. That's his analogy. It just
That's
happens,
it.
right?
Right.
But you can also consciously direct your breath. Same with imagination.
Interesting. And he calls himself a reality researcher. What's that about?
Yeah, basically someone who learns by looking directly at the world through experience rather than just, reading studies.
So observing things firsthand.
Exactly. And that really shaped his approach. He started by looking at how creation works in nature itself.
The thinking being, if we understand nature's creation principles.
Maybe we can understand our own creative processes better, since, we're part of nature too. It kind of makes sense.
Which leads to a really key analogy he uses.
Ah, the forest and jazz.
Yeah.
Yes.
Explain that one.
Well, think about it. You walk into a forest, you see millions of spruce trees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every single one is unique, slightly different, but they're all unmistakably spruce trees.
Okay. And jazz.
Same thing. Within jazz, you can have endless variations, countless unique songs, but they still fit within that genre. They have shared identity.
So the question is, what connects them?
Exactly. What are the underlying rules or principles that allow for all that variety within a recognizable structure?
And he explores this with a blank piece of paper.
Yeah, sounds simple, but it was profound for him. He just took a blank sheet and asked, what do I need to do to create something?
And the answer was?
He'd already done something. He picked up the paper. Creation, he realized, always starts with something that already exists. You need material.
That's a good point if you're feeling blocked. Find you're starting something.
Definitely. And then he thought, okay, what next? To make something new, you have to fold it or draw on it.
Basically, divide the space.
Right, divide that big empty space into smaller bits. And he saw this principle everywhere.
Like how?
We divide land into plots,
Yep.
right? Put up walls to make rooms, furnish the rooms, even sound divides silence, light divides darkness.
So division is fundamental.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not just division, it's also combination. Putting things together. He even wonders if divide and divine might be linguistically linked way back.
Huh. Division and combination.
Mm-hmm. And he uses the paper airplane example to make it really concrete.
Okay, how does that work?
He says the very first fold you make, that's the big one.
Establishes the basic shape.
Exactly. Everything after that is just adding details, refining it.
And even with instructions.
No two planes will ever be identical. They'll have tiny differences. Just like the trees, just like the jazz songs.
Makes you want to fold one right now.
Doesn't it? And it leads to this bigger question. Is there like a blueprint in a spruce seed?
And is style, generally speaking, just about the specific way you divide and combine things, the order, the angles?
Could be. Think about music styles.
Yeah.
Different instruments, right? Different playing styles, different moods.
It's all combinations of those factors.
Yeah, it seems like style is just a collection of those choices, how you divide and combine.
He also uses making cement as an example. Seems very practical.
It is. You need sand, right,
Yeah.
which comes from rock being divided, broken down.
Okay, division again.
But you also need water, other things, and a specific process to combine them.
The combination part.
Right. Cement wasn't just having sand and water, it was figuring out how to combine them effectively.
And combining things can create something bigger than the parts.
Totally. Like this fun example, a jazz festival in a forest. Way more than just trees plus music.
It's a whole new experience.
Exactly. And he has this neat mathematical analogy too, 1 plus 1?
Usually equals 2.
Usually.
Yeah.
But he says, what if they truly merge? Then you get one new thing, but with 3 parts. Me, you, and us.
The relationship itself as a third entity.
Yeah, that us is more dynamic than just 2 separate things. Maybe creativity is about finding that kind of harmony between dividing and combining.
That makes sense. And he sees this playing out in society, too.
He does, this tension. We're unifying, right? Villages to nations to alliances.
Yeah, getting bigger.
But at the same time, we're fragmenting. New niches, subcultures, tech getting smaller and smaller.
Like transistors on a chip.
Exactly. So where does that lead? What if both peaks at once? It's a bit mind-bending.
It really is. And combining styles creates new styles.
Yeah, like mixing notes makes chords, mixing colors makes new colors. He even points out there's a real physical link between sound and color wavelengths that harmonize.
Wow. Okay. So the big takeaway from this first part seems to be all creation comes from existing stuff.
Pretty much. It's always a new combination of old elements.
Yeah.
You need material to start, whether you're dividing or combining.
You can't speak words you haven't learned.
Right. So what looks new is just a fresh arrangement of the old.
Okay, so if that's true, does the amount of creativity just depend on how much stuff you know, how much exposure you have?
Could be part of it, yeah. More exposure means more ingredients for combination. That's maybe the quantity.
But what about the quality?
Well, he suggests quality might come more from exploring different perspectives on the things you already know, looking at them in new ways.
Right, because development builds on what came before.
Exactly. The caveman couldn't imagine a car. No concept of wheels, engines.
But once you have a wheel and a cart,
Combining them into a wagon is imaginable. So it's about effectively combining past experiences.
and he shifts his view slightly here, from creativity being about questioning things.
Yeah, he used to think that. But now he sees it more as finding functional combinations between seemingly unrelated things.
Like kids do before they learn rigid categories.
Exactly. Before they're told, this doesn't go with that.
So even if we don't all have the same breadth of experience,
Everyone can still imagine, what if I combine this and that? That's the core capacity.
and that leads to his definition of imagination.
Yep. Simple and powerful. Imagination is our ability to see alternatives and combinations.
It needs existing material.
Absolutely. But once it has it, boom, it
Yeah.
works effortlessly. Think of a ball, think of colors, you can instantly imagine a ball of any color.
And this connects to why things seem to be speeding up so much now. Development.
He thinks so. More people, more shared experiences, amplified massively by the internet.
Means exponentially more potential combinations for our collective imagination.
Exactly. But then he tackles that saying, only imagination is the limit.
And he says, what? Imagination is a limit.
In a way, yes. Because we literally cannot imagine combinations of things we know absolutely nothing about.
Okay, do you mean an example?
Try this. Imagine an object that fits no category, looks like nothing you've ever seen. Hard, right, blank.
Now imagine a football. Easy. An orange. Easy.
Yep.
Now combine them. Maybe an orange with football patterns. You can do that.
Okay.
Now imagine a totally new flower, unlike any existing flower.
Yeah, that's harder. My mind just grabs bits of flowers.
Exactly. You hit a wall based on your existing knowledge.
So he suggests a warm-up. Just combine random objects mentally.
Yeah. Pick stuff around you, imagine weird combinations. It's a reminder that every physical object started as an idea.
And ideas are way more flexible in the mind than in reality.
Much easier to mold and combine mentally. He also makes a point about negation.
Like, don't think of an elephant.
Right. Try not imagining a rose. Can you actually stop the image?
Nope, there it is. His point is the mind processes the thing, the rose, regardless of the don't. Maybe why kids struggle with negatives.
Could be. They focus on the action, not the not.
And everything we hear, everything we take in, becomes part of our mental furniture, so to speak.
Blurring the lines between our own thoughts and input from others.
Kind of. So a stimulating environment full of interesting ideas, naturally fuels inventiveness.
And hearing opposing views.
That expands the possibilities too. Creates that space between views where new ideas and compromises can emerge. Reading a book is almost like...
A direct thought transfer, author to reader.
Yeah, that's how he puts it.
Okay, this is fascinating. It leads into this idea about imagining the impossible.
Right. If we can only imagine based on experience, how can we possibly imagine impossible things?
Seems like a contradiction.
His take is that we can imagine combinations that fall somewhere between the possible and the impossible. Or we can imagine the steps needed to get there.
Making the impossible seem less impossible, more reachable.
Exactly. By exploring those intermediate stages, he suggests truly impossible things, things we lack any foundation for, probably don't even occur to us.
So look at everyday stuff and see the combinations already there.
Yeah, like vehicles, walker, scooter, moped. It's a progression of combined ideas. Or scissors, 2 handles, 2 blades. Or all the different kinds of helmets. Practice seeing the combinations.
You could even play this with kids. Imagine a catfish.
What sound does it make? He notes humor often comes from these unexpected, slightly illogical combinations.
Things that clash amusingly.
Right. Which brings us to this concept he calls the Z-axis of thought.
Z-axis, like zooming in and out.
Pretty much. The idea is big things are made of small things. Zoom in, you see more detail, more complexity.
Okay.
Zoom out, you see the simpler overview, how things fit into a larger context, moving between those levels.
And he uses a clock analogy.
Yeah, the clock face shows the big picture, the time. But inside, all those tiny, intricate gears working together.
And our lives are like that.
Sort of. Our current situation is the sum of countless small choices we made. So aligning the small daily actions with the big goals is crucial.
Dreaming big isn't enough without the small steps.
Exactly. Start being the person you want to become, right? Do the small things that person would do.
And this relates to looking at things from different boxes.
Yes. He uses box to mean any concept, category, viewpoint. Seeing things from different boxes is key for creativity and problem solving.
And just realizing something is a box.
It means you're already starting to look outside it.
So what's outside the box?
More boxes, all shapes and sizes.
Okay.
So the focus shouldn't just be escaping boxes, but maybe deciding where to build your box, what's inside, what's outside, and how it interacts with others.
And maybe creating something between existing boxes.
That's a really interesting idea he proposes. Instead of competing head-on, create something in the middle that helps the competitors.
Like his Twitter, Google Calendar integration idea, useful for both.
Exactly. It's about finding complementary combinations.
Which relies heavily on understanding perspective.
Massively. He uses the coffee cup analogy.
Right, with the handle.
Yeah. People around the cup see different things. The person who can't see the handle won't get why others talk about it.
Until they move, or the cup turns.
Right. True understanding needs seeing other perspectives. And he argues any topic is like that cup. Our views come from our experiences.
So broadening horizons, travel, listening, it expands our viewpoints.
Definitely. And since each perspective is true from that viewpoint, arguing is often pointless.
Better to share your view and be curious about theirs.
Empathy becomes super important for understanding different opinions.
Okay, so let's try and summarize the core method here. Logical creativity is...
It's basically about consciously examining things from multiple perspectives and actively imagining combinations between concepts, perspectives, characteristics in lots of different ways.
And the 2 main principles again?
1. Use imagination to make novel combinations of things or parts of things. 2. Recognize everything is made of smaller things and exists within larger things, allowing combinations across scales and viewpoints.
And the belief is, ideas generated this way will likely be relevant, feasible.
And complementary rather than just competitive.
Yeah.
Because they're built logically from what already exists.
And inside the imagination.
No rules, only possibilities.
Endless
Combinations.
Right, let's get practical. That hammer screwdriver warm-up.
Yeah. Simple but effective. Imagine you need to drive tons of screws, wrist aching, wishing you could just hammer them.
Okay, common frustration.
That leads to the idea. Combine hammer and screwdriver. How? Explore the middle ground. What tool creates rotation through hammering?
I don't know.
Exactly. But now you have a concept, starting point to explore. Maybe look at existing rotational tools. It's about finding that space between.
Got it. And he gives more detailed examples.
Oh, yeah. Several good ones. Like the plant-based routine.
Plant-based? Like diet?
No, like structuring your routine based on plant life cycle.
Oh, that's different.
He'd avoided routines Then noticed everything in nature has a rhythm, so maybe humans should too. But he questioned the standard study, work, retire model.
Felt too linear, maybe.
Perhaps.
No.
So he scaled it down, took that whole life cycle and applied it to a week.
Oh.
He compared life stages to a day: youth morning, work daytime, age evening, then looked at a plant: sprout, grow, flower, fruit, spread seeds, wither.
And mapped those to days of the week.
Exactly. Monday, sprout, goals.
Oh.
Tuesday, grow, learning. Wednesday, flower, strengths. Thursday, fruit, finish work. Friday, spread seeds, networking. Saturday, wither, review, let go.
And Sunday.
No plant equivalent, so rest, relaxation.
That's quite clever. You could scale it daily, too.
Incorporate daily tasks, but keep the day's theme in mind. Finding your own rhythm, protecting productive time.
Okay, cool example. What else? Crowdsourced transport.
Right, this came from seeing crowded buses on fixed routes versus tons of single-occupant cars going anywhere.
The contrast.
Yep. Public transport, fixed route stops, private cars, free movement stops. What's at the middle?
Flexible routes. Flexible stops.
Exactly. Crowdsourced transport. An app matching drivers' destinations with passengers' needs.
Like Uber, basically, which came later.
Right. And then he pushed it further. What if every car was like that? And payment wasn't cash, but city incentives.
Like tax breaks or free parking for participating, reducing the need for public transport investment.
It's that kind of combination thinking.
Okay, another one. Lending library.
This one shows picking small features from different concepts. He contrasted traditional libraries with online shopping.
What did he pick?
Online shopping's recommendation feature based on purchase history. Libraries don't usually ask for feedback.
So add a simple rating system for books.
Yeah, 1-5 stars. Use that for recommendations. Simple combination.
Clean the other part.
Delivery and returns. Online shopping uses mail. Why not libraries? Borrowers pay postage, get a return envelope, borrow from anywhere.
So it's a hybrid. Library meets online store.
Exactly. Cross-pollinating concepts.
The Wi-Fi menu sounds intriguing too.
This came from a bar in Thailand. Free Wi-Fi. Password was the phone number. Functional, but no added value.
Okay.
He remembered hotel Wi-Fi that redirects to a login page. So combine them.
Yeah.
Password-free bar Wi-Fi. Connect, enter your table number, and boom, it redirects to the menu on your phone.
Order directly from the phone.
Yep. Browse, order, server seat on a tablet, acknowledge, deliver. Request the bill the same way. Maybe see a running total.
That adds real value, saves servers running, keeps interaction.
Right. Better Wi-Fi, less hassle, still human connection, plus potential for targeted menus, online payment, maybe even influencing the music.
And a backup for people without phones.
Sure, a server-side version. It makes you think, where else could this apply? Hospitals, events.
Lots of places. Okay, last example. The calendar.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Challenging the standard digital calendar, horizontal week, vertical days.
Which often just copied analog calendars.
Exactly, like early video editing, mimicking tape decks.
Yeah.
He asks, what if we rethink it digitally?
What's the problem he saw?
Days feeling boxed in when time flows. Especially with global teams across time zones, those boxes feel artificial.
So what's the alternative?
Maybe a horizontal week view works better for a day view. An endless vertical list of rows showing different things on a timeline.
Like what kind of things?
His example.
Yeah.
First row is your normal calendar. Next row, maybe your spouse's calendar. Then fitness schedule, Facebook events, call log, weather.
All layered on the same timeline for that day.
Yeah, and you could dive into each row for details. He also tackled selecting long time periods.
Which can be fiddly. Booking flights months away.
Right, so he asked, what if it was easy like highlighting text? Painting a time period.
How would that look?
Imagine rows for the year. Quarter, month, week, day. You just swipe across the rows to select your start and end. Super intuitive, even across year boundaries.
That sounds much better. Okay, so wrapping up.
Yeah, the core idea of logical creativity is really this. Consciously explore combinations, look from different perspectives. That's how you generate new ideas.
Using those two main principles, combine things imaginatively and remember the hierarchy, small things in big things.
It's about seeing the connections and possibilities.
And it's a reminder that imagination isn't this fixed resource, it's a skill.
Absolutely. A skill in seeing alternatives and forging connections.
So we really hope you, listening, try those warm-ups, the hammer screwdriver idea, or just combining random objects in your mind.
Yeah, start flexing that imaginative muscle, see what emerges.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
Think about a problem in your life right now that feels Well, maybe impossible. Or just a recurring frustration you have.
Something you feel stuck on.
Exactly. Now, what happens if you deliberately apply this? Start breaking it down, look at the pieces.
And imagine weird combinations.
Yeah.
Shift your perspective completely.
Yeah. Ask yourself, what are the boxes around this problem? What might be just outside them?
Ponder how applying these logical creativity principles combining shifting perspective might unlock something unexpected.
Some new insight, maybe even a solution. It's definitely worth exploring.